Hello, my name is Deb Roy. I'm a faculty member here based at the Media Lab, and I wanted to share with you a little bit about work we're doing on what we call conversation networks and the role of AI that helps build civic muscle along the way. These are the problems that we're hoping to address. Algorithms reward outrage and polarization. Authentic voices are drowned out by noise, bots, and bullshit. It's nearly impossible to know what people really think and experience. There's clearly an interest in honest conversation to hear and be heard, and the platforms that we're surrounded by are not built for this. So we started in 2017 developing a new approach. It starts with bringing people together in small groups in quiet spaces. We've done a lot of work in developing what we call conversation prompts or conversation guides. These are live facilitated conversations that are with consent recorded and transcribed. They can happen in person, they can happen over Zoom, they can happen using an app that we've started developing that embeds a lot of these methods. Once you have a number of these small group conversations with shared prompts, we've developed an approach to sense making, to finding themes or narratives that emerge across many small group conversations. So this is one of many touch points where there's AI involved, so I'll just give you a bit more of a sense of how it works in this case. We've created tools where you can actually lift out chunks of conversations from these recorded conversations, and along the right panel there are what we call themes. If you're experienced with qualitative research, kind of code books that have definitions that are all understandable by humans. In this case, you click into this theme and the AI, there's a large language model that's providing a little justification for why this theme would apply to this chunk of conversation. But everything is under human control, which is a key idea in this design. So when the person, the sense maker, says accept the AI adjusted codes, they're accepted to this chunk of speech. So that's a little example of what we call a steering wheel that is designed for someone who is not an expert in AI, or in this case, qualitative research, to understand, edit, adjust the coding, and apply it to this piece of speech. So once you have this sense-making process, we've developed ways to create different formats of voice outputs, which can then be shared back with members of the community that were part of these conversations. And using then the social network app, we can create richer connections between people and also create a public sharing function which can create visibility beyond the people involved. So just to give you an example, a live example of how this and a number of other AI tools have been put into the hands of one community partner, Opportunity Youth Network is an education advocacy group that works in Newark. We trained a group of youth leaders in a train-the-trainer model to use the AI tools and methods. Their interest was in lifting up voices of young people in high schools in Newark who are out of school, to understand why there are high levels of absenteeism. So this is an example of one of the outputs. I'm just going to play about 40 seconds. If you've ever listened to a focus group, you'll immediately recognize a very different kind of insight that flows from these conversations. So you're hearing not Gen AI, but real voices that have been facilitated with AI tools. So a little bit of just the kind of authentic conversations that emerge from these sort of spaces. Again, their interest: why are kids finding it difficult to be in school?
Being the second oldest of my family is more responsibility on me. I got a little brother and I got a sister. It was like, when do I even have time for school? When do I have time for myself?
I was basically like this kid's mom, and having to be a teenage mother to a kid that is not even yours, I didn't realize all of this shouldn't be happening. I should be in school right now, not picking up my little brother. It's just a lot of things at home.
I feel like for us, nobody experiences as much loss as we took. Like, we got friends we really grew up with, like from the sandbox, like 3 years old, and it's like, they gone. And it be like, mentally, we don't be here. Like, I'm here, I'm walking around, I'm gonna put on this mask, I'm gonna make y'all feel like I'm good, I'm okay, but I'm hurting, like I'm really in pain.
The same group of youth used these AI tools to create a systematic conversation map prevalence of different themes that emerge, such as sense of belonging, mental health, life outside the classroom. You click into one of these, sense of belonging, you get sub-themes, school climate, misunderstanding by teachers and staff. These are all thematic codes that were part of that AI tool. You click in to explore full insights, and there is a narrative form. We call this a story of stories. Every one of these links goes to a story from one of these young people. This output is actually being used now. This is from last year, a group of high schoolers teaching the teachers. If you're familiar with Teach for America, this is the incoming cohort, listening to and seeing the analytics coming out of this work led by these high schoolers. So just a couple of things to point out about principles of how we bring large language models into these systems. One is we, rather than push-button AI, where there's relatively little steering, most people don't know how to fine-tune or develop sophisticated prompts. There are now people who are writing 20 to 30 page prompts for an LLM. And so there's a lot of variability. So instead, we have what we call human-steered AI. A lot of people who are doing advocacy work will capture input from community members, push a button and say, ChatGPT, summarize and give me themes. They can't necessarily get the themes they want. There's infinite variability in the prompts. And then they take those and they say, give me a summary so I can do my advocacy work. So this is a bunch of three different elements that we think are bad design principles. A sort of uncontrollable use of AI, the AI swallowing human voice and speaking on behalf of humans, one-way extractive flow. So instead, we've got our steering wheel. It's designed so that anyone in a community with about 2 hours of training can use the tools to actually tune how voices are interpreted. And we're not just swallowing and letting the voices disappear. There's actual voices coming through the other side facilitated by the AI. And we are designing media outputs, so there's a feedback loop built in. Schools in Maine are using this process. Madison, Wisconsin has used this process as an input for hiring their police chief. NPR has used this for community conversations across the country to lift up voices and broadcast them nationally. We've worked with a couple hundred organizations. Last slide. The model here is an alternative to a social media network where rather than the broadcast model of media, we have small group conversations as the basis of a form of scalable social network. And there are a set of roles here that are being played by human beings. And along with using technology to foster constructive communication and listening, we have a second goal, which is really to allow people to build what we call civic muscle. How to organize conversations, how to hold space for others, how to be a cross-pollinator, how to create the prompts for these conversations, how to be a sense maker and lift up and interpret voices of your community. These are all examples of what we think are valuable skills for community, for thriving communities and for thriving democracies. And so when we think about the role of AI, a lot of these from an information processing point of view or an economic analysis, it's very tempting to automate, because they are, a lot of these jobs to be done are in the sweet spot of large language models. And so the way we think about where's the right way to bring AI in, which we have for each of these roles, I'll just end with a quick analogy. If you are interested in building physical muscle and you show up at your gym and the gym owner says, great news, we have some new technology, robots. You say, what do they do? They lift the weights for you. That would kind of defeat the purpose of going to the gym. Instead, if the robot served as a personal trainer, it could have all the strength to lift the weights, but it's a very different role that it should play. In the same way, in the Civic gym, which we feel we're developing here and bringing into young people's hands, that's the principle that we use to figure out what are the proper swim lanes for AI versus humans. And I think in a lot of different roles and a lot of different societal needs, we ought to be designing those principles and developing technology accordingly. Thank you.